Welcome, everyone, to the Beer Guys radio show. Thanks so much for joining us. We're happy to be here, and we're happy to have you with us. I am Tim Dennis. This is Beer Guys Radio. Brian Hewitt, how are you doing?
I am doing well, Tim. I'm not going to ask because we covered that before the show.
Yes, we did. But if you were going to ask me, I was ready for it this week because I've been off my game before. I was like, all right, I did not say how I was. So if he asked me, I'm ready to respond. Even though you didn't ask because you obviously don't care, Brian. I'm doing fine.
Right.
So,
I don't care at all.
I don't care. How are you doing, Tim? Never mind. You don't need to answer that. I don't really want to know. It's just conversational. That's like American culture. A lot of people say that, when it's more of a greeting. Hey, how you doing? It's like we don't mean that. That's hello. That's American for hello. So
I definitely do that where it comes out as like one word and you're like, well, I mean, they might tell me. I don't know if I care, but
what am I asking for here?
How you doing?
Yeah. And producer extraordinaire Mo Mike Nate, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Tim. And because I care about you, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I think. Thanks for asking, man. Thanks for asking. Yeah, it was a busy day overall. I'm doing pretty well, though. So, yeah, glad to be chilling out, having a beer right now. So it's good. Life is good.
Indeed.
Indeed it is. Well, guys, we got plenty to talk about this week. Always good stuff going on here. And World Beer Cup, the Craft Brewers Conference and World Beer Cup was recently held. So big thing. All the craft brewers go out there. I know a lot of the brewers love that because they said it's the industry event. There's always beer festivals and all this stuff, but you get to see your brewery buddies. You get to, guys you've done collaborations with or maybe set up new collaborations and really get to hang out with other people that kind of walk the same walk as you do. Every industry has its own idiosyncrasies and, hanging out with each other that know the pains and all that is always a good time. But the big news for us on the consumer side is they had the World Beer Cup, which is, I'd say, the top two there as far as beer competitions go. We've got GABF that is always look forward to, and then World Beer Cup with CBC. So it's always fun to see what comes in from those. We're going to give some love to our local breweries here. They got some love. We're going to share that for a few here in Georgia. And it's cool to see some smaller breweries on these lists, that maybe don't get as much hype in that. Maybe it'll, get them recognized in that. So shout out to the folks at Drowned Valley Brewing Company up in Cartersville, Georgia. They got a bronze for their Bartow Brown for American Style Brown Ale. Our friends at Bold Monk for the Virtue of Patience, they got gold for that in the Fruited Wood and Barrel Aged Sour Beer category. And that was phenomenal. So that's one. I haven't had the Bartow Brown. I have had that one, and it's absolutely fantastic. And then the crew at Monday Night Brewing for their Tie 12, which is their anniversary beer. They do, Tie 12 on, Tie 5 on, whatever. And I think we were talking to Peter Kiley. He said up through 4th anniversary, I think, each year he was doing like 3 malts, 3 hops, 4 malts, 4 hops. And then he's like, we got up around 5 or 6. We're like, we can't do this. We can't do this. So.
Didn't he make it up to like 8 before he gave up on it? Or was it that far?
I don't remember where he bailed on it, but he did get up there a while. But I know Tie 12, it'd be pretty hard. It would be quite a mess, I think, to get 12 different malts and 12 hops in there. Maybe you could do it. So Peter's a talented brewer. If anybody could do it, then it's definitely would be him. But outside of the Georgia brewers, some other kind of, we're going to say highlights. We grabbed a few from some of the more popular categories for us anyhow, the ones that we enjoy. And Kauai Pie from Bull and Bush Brewery in Denver, Colorado, they got gold for the Imperial Pastry Stout. And that is Kauai Pie. I Googled it to try and see, and I didn't find specific information on this beer, but there were a few things called Kauai Pie. And it looks like essentially that is chocolate, coconut, macadamia nuts. And look, Googling around a little bit more on their beer, that is what's in that beer. That sounds good. That sounds really good to me. I'd love to try that out. One I thought was pretty interesting, Brian. I saw that Gumball Head from Three Floyds got a bronze, and it was in the English. What exactly was that? English?
I think it was just English ale category.
English ale category. Yeah. I find that interesting because Gumball Head has been around forever.
It wasn't. It's a pale ale, I think.
Maybe did they switch it up? I don't know. I think I may still have one in the fridge. Maybe I need to dig in my beer fridge and see what's going on. But I thought that was interesting that this is one that's been around a while. It's like not some new one out there on the block, but along those same lines, another one that's been around for a while and is excellent. So not really surprising that it won, but Freem, their Pilsner, took gold in the German style Pilsner category. Again, that's a great one out there. So definitely not surprising. And this one I wanted to share not only for the category, Brian, but just for the title of the beer. Jimmy Buffett ruined my life.
Yeah.
From Swells a Brewing Company in Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina. And that was for one of the hazy IPA categories. I forget if it was IPA or DIPA. Do you have that list there, Brian?
Yeah, it was Juicy or Hazy Imperial India Pale Ale.
Okay.
So it was actually the Imperial one. But I love the title. R.I.P. Jimmy Buffett.
Yes. I want to know the story behind that title, exactly how he did that. And from Old Irving Brewing in Chicago, Beezer got gold for hazy IPA. And I always think it's interesting to see some of these breweries here that I've never heard of. I've never heard of Bull and Bush. I've never heard of Swelza. I've never heard of Old Irving. So cool to see some of these new names on the list here to check out. Brian, can you pull up the details on the non-alcoholic category? Because I only made one note there, and I think this is worth mentioning. Some of these. We've had some interesting discussions around NA beers here recently. And just that kind of the game is changing, I guess, is the overall thing. You've got big breweries, experienced, excellent breweries that are kind of entering the game. They took a little while to formulate, but from accounts from people who we've heard, and I haven't tried a lot of the NA beers from the bigger brewers, to be honest with you. I've tried a lot of the ones that are from NA breweries, but, maybe we're raising the bar overall in NA beer. But for gold, probably no shocker here, but Black Butte NA from Deschutes took the gold category. What do we have in the other spots there, Brian?
So for silver, we have Athletic Brewing. They've got Soul Sour. I don't know any additional details about what went into it. So it's a sour non-alcoholic beer. And they're out of Milford, Connecticut, of course. And for bronze, we got Night Strike by Leader Brewing out of Palm Bay, Florida. So that's I've not heard of them before, so they're new to the game, but apparently they're doing really good work in terms of non-alcoholic beers. So I've heard really good things about Black Butte non-alcoholic. I really, really want to try it. I've yet to see it. So.
I was going to ask, have you seen it around here yet? I know we get the Deschutes stuff, but I don't think I've seen that yet. And our buddy Scott Hadeen is here in the chat, and he's first of all complimenting Brian's beard.
Thanks, Scott.
But outside of that, he mentioned that Gumball Head was a wheat IPA with Amarillo. So I don't know if they reformulated or just entered it into a different category, because you can play with those categories sometimes. We found that out when we were home brewing, that a beer may not fall directly into the categories there, and sometimes you got to play with it. And a beer that may be a gold medal in one category may not do that well in another. We were talking out at GABF many years ago. We were talking to Tall Alex from the Rare Barrel. And he mentioned that it was, especially with beers like those that are mixed fermentation and kind of a challenge. And I think at that time, really, the style was just really getting defined within the competition, that it was, what category you entered it into could make all the difference for the beer there. So interesting stuff. But yeah, so that's a little bit of what happened at the World Beer Cup there. And always fun to see who wins. I always discover some new breweries, man. And as many as I think I've tried, I find out there's always a ton more that I could go out there and check out. That's when we chat in our Discord chat. We have people on our Patreon, people on our Discord from around the country. And, we'll post our beers, whatever we're drinking in the Discord channels. And I'm like, that's a new one. There's another new one. Haven't heard of them before. So there's a lot out there to check out.
We may have to have some of them on the show at some point.
That's it. We're going to have to check it out, man. Expand and check out some other beers. Brian, in the news of the fun and crazy, this is one, I believe this is from VinePair, and they do a lot of these types of articles, but they sent out we're going to say ranking or listing, however you want to put that, of the booziest and least boozy, not bougie, least boozy counties in the country. And Brian, I think you dug down in the details. So who's boozing it up out there?
Yeah, so they made me aware of it. It's actually an interactive map at intoxistates.com. Anyway, yeah, so they have the entire map. You know, you see the election maps and you see which, if they vote right or left or whatever, Republican or Democrat. Well, they just did that with excessive drinkers, in terms of their level of excessiveness. And it turns out the booziest county in the entire U.S. And you know what? If you haven't looked, guess what state at least do you think this booziest county is in?
I looked at the notes just as you said that, so I'm not going to venture a guess because I know.
Did you already look, Mo Mike Nate? Or are you still?
I didn't. I couldn't even tell you what state it is in, but I'm going to assume it's nowhere in the South.
Yeah, you're correct. You're correct. The interesting thing is the South did not place in the boozy category. But what was that, Tim?
You know what? I probably would have guessed Wisconsin. If I had to guess just out of there, I would place it somewhere in Wisconsin because there you just drink, almost like in Germany. It's just you drink.
And that's with good measure. If you look at the map, Wisconsin's all lit up in red, and they are the booziest states in the union overall.
Okay. Yeah.
So they have 25.29% of their residents in the state are considered excessive drinkers, and that's really what we're looking at here. In terms of the booziest county, it's actually in Montana. It's Gallatin County, and they've got 26.8% of their residents considered excessive drinkers. So their average is higher than the state of Wisconsin. The least boozy is not going to surprise anybody. I'm not even going to bother asking. Utah County in Utah. So the county that is named after the state is the least boozy, with only 9.04% of their residents considered excessive drinkers. And in terms of the statewide top, we already talked about Wisconsin. Utah already takes it for the bottom as well, and they're 12.4% across the entire state. My thought is are the excessive booze drinkers in Utah really drinking at the same level as the excessive booze drinkers in a place like Wisconsin? Are they have a threshold on their ABV, right? I think they may drink a lot of them, but I think they're drinking lower ABV stuff.
I think there's something that the beers they make there. I think they're one of those states that it's split on where they can sell it based on the ABV, and so yeah, maybe they're imbibing. They have 6 beers a day, but they're all 1.2%. They're just getting hammered on NA beer. They're drinking enough NA to catch a buzz. So that's what's going on in Utah.
I happened to see a comment on, I believe it's on Instagram. Jable Shable says, yeah, it's high in Alaska. Yeah, in fact, northern Alaska is very high in terms of excessive consumption.
I could see that.
Alcohol.
I've heard that. Absolutely.
And it's not as bad in some of the other parts of Alaska. You hear about how much they drink. I think it's just the furthest north extremes where they have like nothing but darkness for days at a time in some cases. Yeah.
Is that consistent with the map as the further north you go? Because that would make sense. Like,
as I recall, I don't have it in front of me, and I don't want to lock up all of my web stuff and look at it because it is interactive and it will freeze up a little bit. So, but yeah, the northernmost county of Alaska was all like deep red, and I think the rest of the counties were nowhere near as high as that. So I think it's just a seasonality thing.
Yeah, you get up there, you get way up there, and it's like, you know what, it's dark 6 months out of the year here. I'm just going to stay drunk. I'm going to try and forget this. We had a buddy in extreme North Canada that lived, like, he was in an Inuit village there, truly remote living. And he used to brew a spruce beer. They called it spruce beer, using the term loosely. But they basically, he actually sent some pictures one year where he made it, I think it was like molasses and a bunch of spruce tips in a bucket with fill it with water and ferment it. And then they pretty much use whatever miscellaneous containers they had around and filled it up. So he'd show me where he'd have like an old whiskey bottle that was full, maybe an old mason jar that was full. And he's like, this is our liquor here, and he used to talk to us. I really enjoyed chatting with him. It's been a while since I've talked to him, but his life up there is just so much different than ours down here. Like he was sharing one time, he's like, something happened today that to me is normal, but I realized you guys might find this entertaining. He's like, I was out at the docks and a guy came by on, I forget what their term, they've got a different term for snowmobile, like ski or something like that. But he's like, a guy came by towing a sled behind, he's skiing, he'd just taken a seal. And he's like, so everybody was down at the docks getting their portion of that because the village, brought in a seal. And I'm like, man, fascinating.
That is wild. Was it? Did he put actual like tree boughs into the fermentation?
Like he broke off branches. He put like the branches down in there and
that's
did it.
Wild.
So yeah, we've got Scott again making a comment here. We were talking about the Utah beers. He said Utah higher gravity is sold with liquor. I thought it was something like that. So to get your beer there, you've got to go lower ABV if you want more wider distribution.
And so those people that are really drinking it up may not be drinking beer. They may be hitting spirits, and they're probably going to the liquor store anyway. So
who knows?
What they're getting is probably on par. I was just thinking in terms of like if they were just drinking beer only, I'm like, yeah, they drink 20 of them, but they're only 3.2%,
Right. I've got some friends out in Utah I think I've mentioned before. I grew up Mormon. I grew up LDS, as they call it. So I had a buddy from Utah. I've been out there to visit him. Beautiful place. If you've never been to Salt Lake City, it's absolutely gorgeous out there. And we went up and hit the ski slopes and that. And it really is, a lot of people there really do. There's a lot of straight edge folks there, There's a lot of that not the drinker there. My buddy was not one of them. He was not one of the teetotalers there. Me and him spent many nights crushing. Back in those days, it was 12 packs of Bud Light back then, but we'd been through several of them.
So you're a beer totaler instead of a teetotaler. Right.
That's right.
Named after the drink.
Brian, oh man, I may just cut that out of the show. That was
just
terrible.
Remove that completely.
I don't like
terrible. To try and make up for your joke there. Is that a dad joke? I don't even know if that would call it. No, I think that falls in dad. Teetotaler, you're a beer totaler.
That's right.
So guys, speaking of beer, this is not a tea. Today I am drinking from our friends at Good Word Brewing. I have At the Altar of the Sun, which is their Cole style ale, and it's mighty good. Brian, what you sipping on this week?
I am also drinking, just by random chance, a Good Word beer at the moment. It's a collaboration with Heater Allen. I think I've had it on the show before. It sounds, I'm getting a little deja vu, but it is a Coastline Pils that's dry hop with Saphir, and it's delicious. So I like it a lot. I found in the back of my fridge a leftover White Eye Wit beer from Crooked Hammock when we had them on the show. I don't have any idea how it's still possibly there, but it was there, and I drank that as a pregame thing, getting ready for the show.
How'd that hold up?
It held up pretty well. I could tell it was starting to move in a direction, but being in the refrigerator kept it from going too far in any really negative way. And then I will close things out with a Russian Imperial Stout from Iron Hill. Just because I happen to have one. I like that. There's no frills on that. It's just a Russian Imperial Stout. So I very much enjoy that.
Is that, are you doing that in memoriam or to honor them? So right now we have 2 Iron Hill locations in Atlanta area. One of those being within stumbling distance of Brian's house, and they're closing that one down.
That's what I understand. So. Yeah, it's extremely convenient.
So inconvenient. So inconsiderate of them
to leave.
That.
Yeah, so convenient. Yeah, convenient for it to be there, and I'm gonna miss it. Unfortunately, they were not packing the place out. So
yeah, they weren't. Correct. Nate, what do you got in your glass today?
I just finished my first beer. It was a Schilling Aosta. I'm not pronounced, but it's an Italian Pilsner style. And then my second beer for the night is going to be from Blue Jacket out of DC, and it's a collaboration beer with Tripping Animals from down in Florida. This is a fruited sour with mango, passion fruit, pineapple, vanilla, and milk sugar. I'm also actually double fisting because I have here a margarita in my hand.
You're cocktailing too, huh, Nate? I think
Imagine
Brian,
that.
I know you like to dabble, but I think Nate is our cocktail connoisseur. We did a few videos, Nate's Cocktail Corner, and to be honest, we got lazy because we didn't get a ton of momentum, and we actually put a lot of work into getting those videos together. So it wasn't something we just shot 5 minutes of video and threw it out there. So y'all go watch all of our YouTube shorts and TikToks. So we want to do more, and get them out there.
Encourage us,
Nate. We've been doing some departures from beer, kind of our extracurriculars, and I think you got us a cocktail recipe this week.
Yeah, so considering this show is released on May the 4th, so May the 4th be with you. Happy Star Wars Day. The day after is Cinco de Mayo, and I thought what better way to showcase a cocktail than doing a margarita. And so what I'm showing off is the Tommy's Margarita, which is a riff on arguably one of the most popular tequila cocktails of all time. This was created by Julio Bermejo in the early 90s at his family's San Franciscan restaurant, Tommy's Mexican. And it is a riff because instead of classic tequila, lime juice, and orange liqueur, he just subs the orange for agave nectar. So it makes it a little less sweet, more tequila focused. And it's just, I like my drinks a little bit more spirit forward and citrus forward. And so I like this style a lot better than the traditional style. So the recipe, if those of you want to make it at home, it's going to be 2 ounces Blanco tequila. I used Reposado here, 1 ounce lime juice, half an ounce of agave nectar. Honestly, you can get it at the grocery store. And then obviously didn't, but and also you can salt the rim.
You got to salt the rim, man.
I like a salty rim.
I did add a saline solution to it. I didn't mention that, but I do like to add a little saline solution to all my cocktails.
Oh, a little saline actually in the drink, huh? A little saltiness in the drink. Okay. Yep. That seems much more convenient than just rimming the glass there, Nate. So,
absolutely. Less messy too.
You know something I did recently that Nate and I, or Brian and I, were out at one of our pinball bars, my parents' basement. Shout out to them down in Avondale Estates, Georgia. But I was kind of feeling a margarita, but was also wanting the smokiness of mezcal. So I just asked him, can you do me a margarita, but sub mezcal for the tequila? And it was phenomenal. I mean, that little extra kick to it, I think that would be my preferred way to drink them is, mezcal margaritas. Yeah. And when May the 5th, when Cinco comes up, I got to hunt down a place doing some Mexican ashtrays because I really need to try that out. So we got to find out. We either need to find some place that's serving those, or we're just going to have to make some ourselves to make up.
I like this idea, and you guys inspired me. Maybe sometime tonight I'll have an M&M, which is Amaro Montenegro, half and half with mezcal. And I forget the brand that I have, but they work so well together. It winds up coming off a little bit like a smoky peaty scotch. It's very enjoyable. So I may have one of those. I also enjoy some mezcal.
Good stuff. Making sure to try and up our numbers here in Georgia next time they go doing those boozy rankings.
That's right. We're gonna bring it. Yeah, Atlanta was so low. The Fulton County and all the surrounding counties was like we were teetotalers here, not beer totalers.
Yeah, teetotalers. Yeah. No, not beer totalers.
Yeah,
totally tea. Tea. So, Brian, interesting news that I think affects a lot of industries and definitely in the brewing industry as well. And, my day job as a recruiter, this is pretty big news for me because it can change a lot of things. And, our corporate counsel has basically said, we're going to hold tight till they finalize everything here. We're not changing any policy. But what I am talking about is the FTC banned or is in the process of banning employee non-competes. Now, the first thing I want to say is I didn't know the FTC could do that. Like, I didn't realize they had the authority to do that kind of thing. So they're still looking at it, still looking into it more. There are other things that offer some protections to employers for like IP and such. But Brian, I think you dug in deep on the bullet points here. What's the scoop on this?
So I think as of what I read, they issued their final ruling on it, and it will actually go into effect officially in 4 months. I think we can assume there's going to be lawsuits and things like that may in some way impact that, impair that, because you got 4 months for people to throw in the brakes or whatever and stop it. But the whole point of it is to promote competition, protect people's freedom to change jobs when they need to, increase innovation, and foster the creation of new businesses. The FTC estimates that 30 million workers, that's 1 in 5 people, they are subject to a non-compete clause. I believe I am currently. And we've seen non-compete lawsuits in the beer industry. So it touches on everybody. It affects me. It affects the beer industry, everything. And some of the non-compete lawsuits we've seen have kind of seen, unreasonable or even punitive on the people that are trying to, brew somewhere else or do something else or start their own brewery. The article specifically mentioned Boston Beer Company and some lawsuits they've had. I'm not privy to all the information on that, so I don't know if those are necessarily unreasonable or punitive. It's just they happen to be examples of ongoing things. And Boston Beer Company apparently has a reputation of being very vigorous in enforcing non-competes, so you don't want to fly afoul of them. So the caveat I saw in here is that current non-competes for senior executives may remain in force, but employers are not supposed to enforce any new non-competes for executives. So That's an interesting thing. So I guess
now I think some senior executives are still going to be exempt from the banning from that. I think I did see that, Brian. And another caveat there, things like non-disclosures, non-solicitation, those can still stay in effect. So, basically it wants to allow people, like you said, the competition, the freedom to work and that, but they are still going to let companies protect their info, So how that will play out, basically someone could go to work for another company, but maybe they couldn't take some of the information. And some of this becomes such gray area, Brian, where in my job, there's a lot of people that come from other, especially on the sales side and even on the recruiting side. I've went from one company to the other where there were some clients that I couldn't work with for a year or 2 years because of agreements I had in place. And we've hired salespeople at our company that had really strong relationships with certain clients, but for their first year, they couldn't because of, non-competes that were in place there. But the full non-competes are supposed to go away. I did hear that there would probably be, like you said, lawsuits and that trying to fight against it. But things like the non-disclosures and that can still stay in force. So it's not like employers are giving up any protections, and it gives employees more freedom to find a new job if they need to.
Yeah. I was just thinking about, and I won't mention names because I don't remember all the details, but we had in the news, I don't know how much we got into it, but a brewer left a pretty well-known, respected brewery and wanted to start up another brewery, but they weren't outside of like 120 miles. They were like 80 miles away, and they were getting taken to court for that. I'm like, how dare you start up your own brewery? I'm like, well, that's what dude does, and that's what a lot of brewers, at least at one point, that's the dream. You brew here, but I'm looking to do my own thing eventually. And when that happens, that kind of squashes their ability to do so, unless the employer is pretty cool about the whole process. So some are, some aren't, and I don't remember all the details, but that was a real thing, and that I kind of felt bad for the guy that wanted to do that. I don't know if there was shady stuff going on. I have no idea. Maybe he stole a book of menu or recipes or something. I don't know. I don't know any of that. But
that's
from the outside, it looked bad.
It was Toppling Goliath was the brewery that he came from, and there was a non-compete suit there. I don't know what the end resolution of that was, but it was something where they said, basically this guy, everything he had was coming from them, all the stuff that he would use to do that. So again, that's where it becomes, gray area. Who's to say someone can't go out and start their own brewery or go find another job, do anything? And as a matter of fact, within the brewing industry, it's very common for someone to brew here. We talked one time about kind of doing the family tree of craft beer for Georgia. And, all roads lead to Sweetwater, almost Sweetwater or Terrapin. Sure. Like so many brewers here, spent time at those breweries before starting their own place up. So it's kind of interesting, especially in an area that has Toppling Goliath was the brewery in Iowa, there. So anybody in the beer industry, it was likely that if they got a start in it, if they didn't start their own place right out of the gate, which not many people do that they would have probably spent some time at Toppling Goliath there. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't realize they were running away with stuff. I just remember that they were leaving, and it sounded like, well,
I don't know that they were as much as that may have been
that was the argument. I think
the argument. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Don't know. So outside, have no idea. Allegedly everywhere.
Yeah. Again, this is important to me in beer and in the day job there. So I'll have to see how all this shakes out. But that said, Brian, besides non-competing with your beer, what's the weirdest thing you've ever drank a beer from, Brian?
I gotta say, I think I always drink my beer from a glassware, but I've had some weird shaped glassware. I've had a skull glass. I mean, trying to think if I've done anything out of I can't think of anything very unusual other than just unusual glasses or unusually shaped bottles. Have you?
Maybe the weirdest boot?
Yeah, like Das Boot or the skull mug. I've had a few that look like you're drinking out of a head or whatever, that sort of thing. But that's still glassware. It's not even a vase or an aquarium or anything like that. Like I've seen some people. How about you, Tim?
Does a funnel count? Because that may be my if we're going on weird, that's I haven't got ridiculous with it. Now I will say one that I would say would be I don't know if it'd be weird or cool, but I saw a picture one time that our buddies from Nappy Roots posted where one of their friends won a Grammy and he was at the brewery and they filled his Grammy with beer and drank beer from a Grammy. I'm like, that is now the top of my bucket list. I want to drink beer from a Grammy. So
that would be great.
Scales, I know you listen to the show, so if you hear this, give me a shout. I want to catch up and drink beer out of a Grammy.
Now I have consumed several times directly from a keg. Now it's not via a tap. So I mean, I guess that's technically the maybe the weirdest way to drink it, though it's not that uncommon.
I'll tell you something probably, and I can't validate that I've done this, but I would imagine when you were in school, did you ever do those origami paper cups like for water?
Oh, yeah.
Do either of you know those? So I do not doubt at one point that I may have drank beer out of a self-made paper cup. That's a possibility. Nate, how about you? Any weird vessels for you?
Nothing weird. I mean, I'm kind of like Brian, where it's just been curious looking glassware. So the one that Brian forgot to mention was that we have drank beer out of a mushroom shaped glass.
True.
Yeah. A barbell. I've got a barbell shaped glass.
Okay.
The mushroom. I have the skull and like a horn, of course. But I think all of those are kind of meant as drinking vessels, so it doesn't really matter. Maybe I'll have to get weird. I'll have to find something so I can have one that's weird.
I may have one time. I have a vague recollection of like after you empty out a hot sauce bottle, possibly cleaning it out with alcohol and then just drinking the alcohol off of it. So that technically, maybe that's it.
That's weird.
I mean, I think I might be making this up. I may have done that one time just because it amused me. So I don't know.
Why are you cleaning out hot sauce bottles?
I don't know. It's just
because it's the little thing there. They're almost impossible to read. You were just trying to get some flavored alcohol.
That could have been it. I mean, maybe that was it. Like, what happens if the crusty stuff on the side gets into this tequila or whatever? Let's see what that tastes like. Disappointing. It tastes like tequila with flakes in it. So,
but on that note, and what spurred this, I think that definitely a winner here. The country music singer Allie Walker poured a tall boy of Budweiser into the mouth of a dead catfish and then chugged it.
Oh. At the Stanley Cup after a performance.
At the Stanley Cup. I just can't understand why you'd want to do that at all.
You know,
that's pretty gross, honestly.
Sounds unclean to me, personally. Mm-hmm. I doubt he's sterilized. Was that catfish beer clean?
It's she, and I don't think that. You know what? I have no way of knowing. That could have been a beer clean catfish. It's possible that they had sanitized it. You know, if you pour some Everclear into the catfish first, swirl it around, and dump it out, I think
dump it out. You drink it. What we've already covered.
Well, you can drink
Brian.
it too, but it's just Everclear. It'll just burn everything the whole way through. But that would be really unpleasant. Have you ever tasted Everclear? It's rough. It's really rough.
I've never tasted it with catfish. So
never with catfish.
I don't know. I think you may have corrected me there. So Allie Walker is a she.
Is it she? Yeah, okay. I believe so. I believe I got that right. So
all right, yeah, I just did a Google here. Why? Because I'm not familiar with my country music people. But okay, all right. Well,
there is a reason behind it. Apparently, it's a thing at the Predators playoff games. The people throw dead catfish onto the ice or something like that as a good luck thing, and a few times in the past, people have actually consumed booze from them. So. It's not unprecedented, but it is weird as heck.
Nashville, you guys need to find a new tradition. I'm going to throw that out there. Like bringing dead catfish to a game it's weird.
How do you get that inside?
Catfish. Don't waste catfish, man. It's a living thing. If it's going to give its life, at least eat it. Don't turn it into a drinking vessel or go throw it on the ice just to entertain yourself. That's rude. That's just rude.
Well, I was just thinking, how do you even get it past security? I'm like, well, they
maybe
they look through your bag.
I think it's actually required if you don't have one.
If you don't have a catfish,
you actually get kicked out if you don't walk in with a dead catfish.
Sir, you don't have a catfish, you'll have to leave.
You can't.
Your catfish allotment is too low for the to attend this game.
Yeah, exactly. We can't. You must have this many catfish to ride this ride. Something like that.
That is.
You know how
wild.
we do bobblehead nights here at like Braves games and that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They do moving passes.
Catfish.
Bobblehead that's actually a shot glass. So it's a catfish bobblehead that's a shot glass. That would be be great.
Now, see if they hear this they should capitalize on that. They should definitely capitalize.
Just give us a shout out.
Bobblehead shot glass. No, not a shout. Send us one.
Oh yeah,
you
know, even better.
You need to send us one.
That's right.
Even better.
Wow. Way to go, Nashville. Yeah. Good stuff. Brian, talking earlier about non-competes and non-disclosures and all this stuff. Lawsuits are not uncommon in beer. And, as you go around naming beers, you're definitely going to have some that run over each other. I mean, it just so happens. It's going to happen. You can't come up with a unique name every time. We've had it seen with beer names, with brewery names and such. It happens a lot. But lately, we do have one here that hit a Tilray, who's acquired tons of breweries, but a little bit of big juicy drama, Brian.
Big juicy indeed, yeah. So Spokane's No Lie Brewing Company says Tilray is infringing on their trademark for Big Juicy, those words specifically. They take issue with Red Hook's Big Juicy Ballard IPA, and Red Hook is owned by Tilray, in addition to Sweetwater and a whole bunch of other places. So No Lie has had the trademark for Big Juicy since 2017. So this is safely something they own. And according to what I read, that no amount of doctoring the font or style or size or anything like that changes the impact of this. They own those words on fermented malt beverages. According to the Washington Beer Blog, No Lie Brewhouse previously contacted Tilray about it, and the conversation yielded no resolution. So they are going to court over it. So we will see what happened. It's weird because there are so many names out there, and it's so easy to take a name that's already out there, but it's so easy now to just look up and see what's trademarked. So that was one of the things that's been made a point in several of the articles I read. You could have just looked this up and you'd see that there's actually a trademark out for that verbiage, but maybe they did Big Juicy Ballard as opposed to just Big Juicy, and that wouldn't have showed up. So I think it's up to interpretation.
When you start talking about trademark law and IP, there's always a divide in what people's opinions are on that. And we see big companies that will come after a mom and pop shop saying, that they do this. And you see a McDonald's or a Starbucks. I know I've seen it a few times with Starbucks using things. My opinion, my 2 cents, if you're a big corporation like that and you've got branding, you've got to protect it. And the thing is if you let mom and pop in, beer drink in Montana use it, then when you do have a bigger case with a bigger company where there's something that's a bigger issue, you have a precedent set where you haven't, enforced your trademarks there. So it has to be done. And I would say, No Lie said they reached out to Tilray and it didn't get anywhere. That's definitely the ideal way. I think was it Dogfish Head, and I forget who else, but didn't they do a beer one time called Collaboration, Not Litigation? And it was something where they had Nate, can you Google for us there, please? Yeah. But there was something that they had where it was like they got together, they talked it out, they worked things out. And I'd really love to see in the beer industry if that was the way that's the way it worked. And Brian, I think with a lot of craft brewers it does. But again, Tilray's not, no matter what the BA says on their top 50 list, Tilray's a big corporation. Even if they fall in the rank of best craft breweries, our biggest craft breweries out there. And, the bottom line is a big corporation is ran like a big corporation and not so much, the brotherhood of craft beer drinkers. So.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's, this is a new beer, so it's not like this is something that's been running for a while that they're just finding out about and suing them. I think they just introduced the beer. So that's different. And yeah, It does seem weird, and usually when breweries reach out and contact another brewery about things like this, a lot of times it just gets handled, it gets renamed. We've seen it happen locally where a bigger brewery contacts somebody here and said, "Hey, we own that." And they're like, "Oh, my bad, and I didn't really think about whatever, and let me alter it." So we've seen it happen a few times. Sometimes it's kind of it seems unreasonable, but other times it's completely reasonable. So. Yeah, I don't know.
Right. Sometimes it is. And other times, I try and take each situation and look at it and just make my opinion based on that rather than just simply saying, I'm in the right. they're in the wrong or anything like that. So yeah, so the litigate is called Collaboration Not Litigation Ale, and it was Avery, and I think it was
Russian
Dogfish Head,
River.
but
Russian River.
Avery and Russian River.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So, but yeah, get together, man. Avery and Russian River, two big breweries, two popular breweries. Get together and work it out, man.
You know
Work
why that
it
was?
out.
It's because they both have a Salvation Ale in their lineup. Or
Was
at
it
the time they
Salvation?
did.
Was that it?
Yeah.
Oh, Salvation. I've had Russian Rivers. I know that's.
Yeah,
I know that
I don't
one's
think I've
good.
ever had Avery's, and I'm not sure they still make it. This is going back quite a few years, I think, that they did this. But
that one's in the. Nate wasn't old enough to drink then. When that one came out. So
not a chance.
Yeah. We had old Jable Shables here on Instagram going back to our catfish story. He said catfish is a sushi. So it counts. And I told him he's wrong. I disagree. Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen catfish sushi before. I don't know what decides. I guess maybe taste and texture. I've never tried it raw. No intent. Well, maybe we can ask Allie what it's like as sushi since she's tried it there.
Yeah. I have to wonder if before doing that you have to pregame with a lot of other stuff, and so maybe your sense of taste and smell is not perfectly acute at that time.
Could be the hype of a hockey game, the crowd's roaring, you're all having a good time. You've already had a few tall boys there. Someone hands you a catfish, you've got a tall boy in your hand. It could happen to anybody.
It really
could happen to anybody. Was it Brewdog? They didn't serve out of them, but they stuffed a beer into like a squirrel and a chipmunk, taxidermied.
Oh yeah, that's right. Was that Sink the Bismarck or something like that?
Something along those lines.
In like a taxidermied squirrel or something. Yeah, that's. I haven't consumed a beer directly from that, but that would probably be up there amongst the weirdest things you could drink out of.
That would
if you did it directly.
For sure.
Also like 40%. Anyway,
they were high. I forget the one that we tried. Oh gosh, it tasted like ashtrays and molasses and burning car tires and that, but it was very high ABV. I think at the time maybe one of the highest, but it was another one from Brewdog. But I forget what it was.
Tactical Nuclear Penguin,
Tactical Nuclear Penguin.
Yeah, it's like 27% or something like that. It was pretty wretched.
Brian, if you don't want to get the taste of catfish in your mouth and you don't want to drink an ashtray, then I would suggest that you head over to Truist Park and you go visit our friends at Terrapin Brewery Atlanta. They're going to have a good variety of beers on tap. I cannot guarantee this, but I'm fairly safe in saying they're not going to have a catfish there as a serving vessel. So you're just going to have to drink it out of a glass. But on you know what? Fox Brothers Barbecue may have some catfish on the menu there. Maybe they'll run a special. So if you really, really want to relive it and you want to have some catfish and a beer, they may be able to hook you up. No guarantees there, but our recommendation would be to try some of the barbecue instead. Go out there. They've got, Brian, do you know that Fox Brothers Barbecue once won a Best Burger Award? And it wasn't even a burger. It was just chopped brisket, but it was so good that they won an award. You go down there, get you a nice crushable beer, pair it with that. You're going to have a good time, man. You're going to have a good time. Again, they always have something on new. Recently, we've seen a Berry Days Blueberry Lager there. They have the Terra Moon Peach Wit beer, which is a collaboration with Blue Moon there. They did an amber version of the Los Bravos Mexican lager. So there's something there. They're going to have a big stout on for you. They're going to have some high ABV stuff, and it's just going to be a good time. The weather is gorgeous right now. You need to go out. We're in that season. The pollen's died down a little bit, and it's not 140 degrees here yet. So we're in that sweet spot in Atlanta when it's patio season. And there at Terrapin Brewery Atlanta, they open all the doors. They've got like garage style doors on the front, the roll up doors. And they open it up, and it's basically the whole place becomes a big covered patio there. So you can have a good time. Sit out there. People watch there as they walk through the square there at Truist Park. Have a good beer. Tell them the Beer Guys sent you. And as always, we want to thank our friends at Terrapin Brewery Atlanta for sponsoring Beer Guys Radio.
We really have had a good run of patio weather this year. Like better than average.
Some good patio weather for sure.
Well, speaking of other places that are really, really good for hanging out and drinking on the patio, this week is a great time to drop by your local Truck and Tap. It's because they're throwing their legendary Cinco de Mayhem 2-day party this weekend. And as you're listening to it, it's going on right now. You can expect cocktail specials that are thematically appropriate for the Kentucky Derby, Cinco de Mayo, and Star Wars Day all at the same time. That's right. May the 4th be with you and also in your glass. And on top of that, you can expect live music and, of course, the finest food trucks in the area. Unfortunately, I don't have the cocktail list ahead of time for this, but I do have the draft list for each location, thanks to the Truck and Tap website, truckandtap.com. The forecast says it's going to be a warm one this weekend, like it has been. It's going to be great patio weather. And so my picks are going to be on the lighter, easier drinking side. They won't get you in trouble. If you decide to spring for that margarita or mint julep or whatever the Star Wars drink is going to be. So starting at Lawrenceville, I'm going to go with the Reformation, a cold one, a German Pilsner. It's on their side pull tap. I always love a side pull Pilsner. Moving on to Alpharetta, if you go there, you got to try the Reformation Truck and Tap collaboration, appropriately named Cinco de Mayhem, after the event. It's a rich, malty Vienna lager with a hint of limey Motueka hops, and that sounds great to me. If you go over to the Duluth location, I'm going with Jester King's Mr. Mingo. It's a farmhouse ale with Roselle hibiscus. I don't know what Roselle hibiscus is, but you know that's going to look festive because of the color from hibiscus. And finally, a Truck and Tap Woodstock. I'm picking Three Taverns Lord Grey, a kettle sour with Earl Grey tea, lemon, and notes of lavender and bergamot. And that's a great beer. I just know that's good, so I'm going to go with that. Make sure you drop by your nearest Truck and Tap this weekend. You'll have a blast, and you'll find out what kind of cocktails people drink on Star Wars Day, because I don't have any idea what they would be, but I'm sure they'll be fun. And once again, thank you to Truck and Tap for your support.
We really, really appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you so much. Awesome. Brian.
Yes.
How much would you pay for an empty beer can?
Oh, an empty
Let's
one?
say it's old. An old empty beer can.
About $3.50.
$3.50. Okay. Yeah. Nate, how about you? What's your top you would pay for an empty beer can? It's a really nice, really old beer can. Reminder.
I would ask you to pay me to take it off your hands, because if it's empty, it's like there's no enjoyment of it.
So I gotta say, and I do like Breweriana. I find the word very tough to say. I wish they'd come up with another one, but that's a tough one to say. But I've got a small Georgia beer museum here where I've got some bottles going back to I think I may have one from the late 1800s. I know I've got early 1900s, some glass bottles from Atlanta breweries. And I've got a can from back when we had the Atlantic Brewing Company here in that. But I did not pay for every beer can in my collection. I did not pay as much as the record that was just set for a Perone. I believe it's what it's called. Brian, this is an oil can style beer can. And dates back to the 1940s era there. I believe that they actually aged out this specific can, and it's even a little older than that. But this recently sold at an auction, Perone beer, oil top can, no lid on it, just the oil can, for $51,500 for this beer can.
That's wild.
Oh.
Yeah. And then you throw in the seller's premium or buyer's premium. I forget what that's. I'm mixing up, but there's a $10,000, 10%. So once all was said and done with fees and premiums and all that, it came to $62,830.
That is crazy.
I did a little bit of Googling, and I couldn't find much to say why this particular one was worth so much.
The only thing I saw was that this is apparently the only known example of this particular type of can for this particular brand of beer. Okay. I think it's just the rarity of the can itself.
All right.
I think that's all it is.
Yeah. Now, I will say this. I have paid more for an empty bottle than I think most people would think was reasonable. I have paid $100 for an empty beer bottle.
Okay.
So to me, I thought that was quite a substantial amount to pay for an empty beer bottle. But again, in my opinion, museum piece, put it up there. We had one of our listeners one time reach out to us, and they found an invoice from like 1894 where someone sold a case of beer in Savannah, Georgia. And they're like, look, I found this in an old book of my grandfather's. It's not of interest to me, but I thought it might be something that would interest you guys, and I'd be happy to send it to you. So that's part of my collection as well, which I think I absolutely love stuff like that. But yeah, the most I've ever paid, I do have that one that I really liked, and we reached out to a buddy who knows a heck of a lot more. Shout out to Ken that knows a heck of a lot more about this stuff than I do. And I asked him, is this worth it? And he's like, yes, yeah. If it's something you want, then the price is reasonable. And I'm like, because Ken's one that I think if he had 60 grand to pay for a bottle and it was something he wanted, I don't think he'd have an issue doing that.
Yeah, the only thing about this one is it's out of Philadelphia, and he's very much a Georgia can
He's
collector.
Georgia
so
now.
he would pick it up if he could turn around and sell it for a little bit of a profit to support his own collecting needs.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would be something that stayed in his collection.
Ken is it to show the level of dedication that Ken has. I'm going to use dedication because it's the best sounding word for obsession in that.
Yeah.
But Ken has purchased, to my understanding, the side of a barn one time because it had a beer ad, painted on the side of it. And he purchased the side of the barn and disassembled it and moved it to his house into his collection because of the beer ad on the side of it, which I think is awesome. That's fantastic. And really, they don't do it as much as they did anymore. But I remember being a kid in some of the towns that did it. I think through like the 40s and 50s and maybe even into the 60s, it was pretty common that they paint stuff on the side of buildings and that.
Yeah.
There's a drink in North Carolina. I think it's called Chocolate Soldier. Maybe you guys know what Yoo-Hoo is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what that is. Yeah.
I think it's like a regional Yoo-Hoo and that, but I remember seeing, the buildings painted up for that. Coca-Cola was a popular one that they did that with, but a lot of stuff on there. And I think it's even cooler when you see them that have been there for 50 years and they're faded and, that's just, vintage stuff there. But $60,000 for an empty beer can.
And change. Yeah.
And change. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even pay the and change part.
I mean, I think Ticketmaster must have been selling this because that's what
over
10,000, 11,000 in fees.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's all relative. Like I'm trying to bank 20 grand for a pinball machine right now, which I'd much rather have than a can. And
you're going for the super VIP extra special edition.
I'm going to go for the good one. Yeah, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this right, Brian. So yeah, and for those that aren't aware, like really fancy pinball machines, they can run 20 grand or so.
It's
10 to 20, depending on what kind of features you get on there for new ones. But I guess if you have the kind of money to spend that on there, I mean, this could have been, for all I know, I don't know who bought it. This could have been like buying an expensive lunch or a steak dinner for this particular.
Could be.
person.
Yeah.
So,
I mean.
Yeah. Interesting stuff, man. Interesting stuff. Moving right along, Brian, acquisitions. We always hear them out there. I'll let you take this one because I know you dug into this more than I do, but Jack's Abbey is acquiring Wormtown.
Yeah. I don't know a lot about Wormtown, but this has been all over social media lately, and I figured we needed to mention it. Jack's Abbey is acquiring Wormtown. Both breweries will operate under a newly formed Hendler Family Brewing Company. The acquisition will make the company, this new Hendler Family Brewing Company, one of the 10 largest family-owned brewing enterprises in the entire country. With some related capital investments they plan on making as part of this deal, it will become the largest craft brewing facility in the state of Massachusetts. The deal is expected to close sometime in early summer. And apparently the two, I think Jack's Abbey has been doing some amount of contract brewing for Wormtown, I think. So it's kind of a situation based on everything I read. It was kind of meant to be, and they're like 20 miles apart. I think they're really not far away, and they're on kind of same footing in terms of their reception in the state. So it sounds like it makes a lot of sense, and everybody involved is pretty happy about the whole situation.
All right. Good for them.
Yeah.
I mean, if everybody's happy, then, that's what more can you ask for?
Exactly.
Brian? What more can you ask for? So, guys, as we wrap up here, do either of you go all out for May the 4th be with you? Do you participate in the nerddom?
Not really. No,
not really.
No, that's it. Brian, you and I were talking about fandom the other day, and, Fallout. I love Fallout. I talked about it last week, how much I enjoy it. I like the games. I've just played through Fallout 4 again. I'm playing Fallout 76. I watched the TV series. But the next level of that, beyond just, hey, I really like this, I get a bit obsessed with it. There's people that can tell you the lore, the canon, whatever you want to say, of all this stuff. And Star Wars is a big one where people get into it at that level, So there's cosplaying and there's knowing all of this. The Fallout reference there, I've seen people arguing online. May have mentioned this last week, but like they went up to the creator and there was something that a date that was different through 3 different versions of the game and TV show. And they're like, which one of these is canon? He's like, all of it. Just all of it. Like he's not even he's like, just all of it. I'm not getting into this. But yeah, I don't think I've ever been, whether it's been an artist. I think we were talking about Taylor Swift at the time, Brian, about people who just really get obsessed to the point where someone's like, I don't like Taylor Swift, and they're ready to fight them and start battles and that. And I'm like, look,
they get doxxed.
Yeah, I don't, if you don't like a band I don't like, that's fine. I may not like one that you like. So I dislike a lot of the music you like, Brian. A lot of that ska era stuff and that. Yeah.
Oh, it's great
horrid.
stuff.
It's horrid.
Oh, it's fantastic.
But, yeah.
You have the palate of a goat, Tim.
But I'm the ear palate.
Yeah, the ear palate of a goat.
The ear palate of a goat. Yeah. Well, y'all, we thank you as always for tuning in and hanging out with us. We greatly appreciate it. We would love for you, if you like the show, you know what? Easiest way, give us a share. Share the show with someone else. Tell them about it. Tell them to give us a listen. If you want to kick it up a notch, we'd love your support on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/beerguys. We will send you some swag. We'll get you on Discord. You can come chat and see what beers we're drinking and what can of fish we happen to be eating at that time. But as always, we hope you have a good week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers.